First contact. The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before Zixara as she piloted her sleek exploration vessel through the uncharted regions of the Milky Way. Her iridescent scales shimmered in the soft glow of the ship's controls, reflecting a kaleidoscope of colors across the cockpit. As a member of the Luminari, a species of bioluminescent beings from the distant planet Lux Prime, Zixara had always dreamed of venturing beyond the boundaries of known space. Her mission was simple: to seek out new life and expand the knowledge of the Luminari Collective. Little did she know that her journey was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would challenge everything she thought she knew about the universe and her place in it. As Zixara's ship approached a small, blue-green planet in an unremarkable solar system, her senses began to pick up unusual readings. Intrigued, she steered her craft closer, eager to investigate this potentially habitable world. However, as she entered the planet's atmosphere, something went terribly wrong. Warning lights flashed across her control panel, and alarms blared throughout the ship. Zixara's tentacles flew across the controls, desperately trying to stabilize her rapidly descending vessel. "By the light of Lux Prime," she muttered, her bioluminescent patterns flashing in distress. "This can't be happening." The ship plummeted through layers of clouds, the hull heating up from the friction of re-entry. Zixara braced herself for impact, her four hearts racing in unison. With a deafening crash, the vessel plowed into a dense forest, carving a deep furrow through the trees before coming to a smoking halt in a small clearing. For several long moments, Zixara lay motionless in her cockpit, stunned by the impact. Slowly, she regained her senses and assessed her situation. Miraculously, she seemed to be unharmed, protected by her ship's advanced safety systems. However, a quick glance at her surroundings told her that the same could not be said for her vessel. "Well, this is quite the predicament," Zixara mused aloud, her voice a melodic trill that seemed out of place in the eerily quiet forest. She activated her ship's atmospheric analysis system, relieved to find that the air outside was breathable, if a bit oxygen-rich for her tastes. Cautiously, Zixara opened the hatch of her ship and emerged into the alien world. The forest around her was a riot of green, so different from the bioluminescent jungles of her homeworld. She marveled at the stillness, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or chirp of an unseen creature. As she surveyed the damage to her ship, Zixara's heart sank. The sleek vessel was a crumpled mess, its once gleaming hull now scorched and bent. It was clear that she wouldn't be leaving this planet anytime soon. No use wallowing in despair, she told herself firmly. Time to explore and gather information. That's what I came here to do, after all. With a determined set to her shoulders, Zixara activated her personal cloaking device, a standard precaution for first contact situations, and set off to explore her surroundings. As she walked, she marveled at the diversity of life forms she encountered. Insects buzzed past her, small mammals scurried through the underbrush, and birds called out from the treetops. After several hours of wandering, Zixara's sensitive auditory organs picked up an unfamiliar sound. It was rhythmic and artificial, clearly not part of the natural forest symphony. Curiosity piqued, she followed the sound, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to a camouflage mode that blended with the dappled sunlight filtering through the leaves. As she neared the edge of the forest, Zixara's eyes widened in astonishment. Before her lay a sprawling settlement, unlike anything she had ever seen. Structures of various shapes and sizes dotted the landscape, connected by long, winding paths of dark material. And moving along these paths were the most peculiar vehicles she had ever encountered. But it was the beings themselves that truly captured Zixara's attention. Bipedal creatures moved about with purpose, their skin a range of hues, but lacking the bioluminescence she was accustomed to. They communicated with each other using complex vocalizations, their faces incredibly expressive. "Fascinating," Zixara whispered, her scientific curiosity overriding any sense of caution. She crept closer, eager to observe these strange beings in their natural habitat. As she watched, she noticed a gathering of smaller versions of the creatures, perhaps their offspring, entering a large building. Intrigued by this behavior, Zixara decided to follow them, slipping through the open doors behind a group of chattering youngsters. Inside, she found herself in a vast room filled with rows of desks. The young creatures took their seats while an older one stood at the front, gesturing to markings on a large flat surface. Zixara's universal translator struggled to keep up with the rapid-fire communication, but she gathered that this was some sort of educational facility. Suddenly, a shrill sound filled the air, causing Zixara to flinch. The young creatures began to gather their belongings and file out of the room. In her haste to avoid being touched and potentially discovered, Zixara backed into a shelf, sending several objects clattering to the floor. The room fell silent as all eyes turned toward the source of the disturbance. Zixara froze, realizing too late that her cloaking device had malfunctioned during the crash. She stood there, fully visible, her iridescent scales shimmering nervously as she faced a room full of stunned humans. For a moment, nobody moved. Then chaos erupted. Some of the young humans screamed. Others pulled out small devices and began pointing them at her. The older human at the front of the room stepped forward, his face a mixture of fear and fascination. What are you?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Zixara's mind raced. This was definitely not how first contact scenarios were supposed to go, but she was a scientist, an explorer. She had trained for unexpected situations. Taking a deep breath, she straightened to her full height and spoke, her translator converting her melodic language into the local dialect. "Greetings, inhabitants of this world. I am Zixara, an explorer from the planet Lux Prime. I come in peace and with great curiosity about your kind." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, one of the younger humans, a female with long dark hair, stepped forward, her eyes wide with wonder rather than fear. You're an alien?" she asked, her voice filled with awe. Zixara nodded, relieved to see at least one friendly face. "Yes, I suppose by your definition I am. My ship crashed in your forest, and I was exploring when I found your settlement." The older human, presumably the teacher, seemed to recover his composure. "Class dismissed," he said quickly. "Everyone, please leave calmly." And not a word about this to anyone understood. As the young humans filed out, many still staring and whispering excitedly, the teacher approached Zixara cautiously. "I'm Mr. Jensen," he said, his voice steadier now. "I teach biology here." I never thought I'd be saying this, but welcome to Earth." Zixara's bioluminescent patterns shifted to a warm, friendly glow. "Thank you, Mr. Jensen. I apologize for the disruption. It was not my intention to reveal myself in this manner." Mr. Jensen shook his head, a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "No need to apologize. This is, well, it's the most extraordinary thing that's ever happened in this school. Probably on this planet, for that matter." As the last of the students left, the dark-haired girl who had first spoken lingered by the door. "Mr. Jensen," she called, "can I stay, please? I have so many questions." Mr. Jensen hesitated, looking from the eager student to the alien standing in his classroom. Finally, he nodded. "All right, Sarah. But remember, this has to stay absolutely secret. Do you understand?" Sarah nodded vigorously, her eyes never leaving Zixara. "I understand. I won't tell a soul." As Sarah approached, her face alight with curiosity, Zixara felt a surge of excitement. Despite the unplanned nature of this encounter, she realized she was about to embark on the most important cultural exchange of her career. And judging by the expressions on the faces of Mr. Jensen and Sarah, the humans were just as eager to learn about her. "Well," Zixara said, her translator conveying the warmth in her voice, "where shall we begin?" And so, in a small classroom on a planet called Earth, two species began a dialogue that would change the course of both their civilizations. As Zixara prepared to answer the humans' questions, she couldn't help but wonder what incredible discoveries awaited her on this strange, beautiful world. Little did she know that this was just the beginning of an adventure that would test the limits of her understanding, challenge her preconceptions, and ultimately showcase the remarkable resilience and ingenuity of the human species. Cultural shock. As the afternoon sun filtered through the classroom windows, Zixara found herself at the center of an impromptu interspecies cultural exchange. Mr. Jensen had pulled up a chair, his initial shock giving way to professional curiosity, while Sarah perched on a nearby desk, her legs swinging with barely contained excitement. "So, Zixara," Mr. Jensen began, his voice taking on the measured tone he used for lectures, "you mentioned you're from a planet called Lux Prime. Can you tell us more about your world?" Zixara's bioluminescent patterns shifted to a warm, nostalgic glow. "Lux Prime is a world of eternal twilight," she explained. "Our binary stars never fully set, casting our planet in a perpetual state between day and night. As a result, all life on Lux Prime has evolved to be bioluminescent." Sarah's eyes widened. "You mean everything glows? That sounds beautiful." "It is," Zixara agreed, her patterns rippling with fond memories. "Our cities are symphonies of light, and our forests pulse with the heartbeats of a million glowing creatures." Mr. Jensen leaned forward, fascinated. "And your species, the luminary, how does your society function? Do you have families, governments, schools like ours?" Zixara considered the question. "We have collective units, which I suppose are similar to your families. Our government is a consensus-based system where decisions are made through a network of shared thoughts and emotions. As for education, we have a process of knowledge transfer that occurs through direct neural links." Sarah's brow furrowed. "Direct neural links? You mean you can just download information into your brains?" "In a manner of speaking, yes," Zixara confirmed, "though it's more of a gradual process of assimilation rather than an instantaneous download." Mr. Jensen shook his head in amazement. "Incredible. Your species must be far more advanced than ours in many ways." Zixara's patterns shifted to a more modest hue. "Advanced in some ways, perhaps, but I've already observed many fascinating aspects of your world that are entirely new to me. For instance, I'm curious about the purpose of this facility. You call it a school." As Mr. Jensen launched into an explanation of the Earth education system, Zixara found herself marveling at the concept. The idea of gathering young ones in a centralized location for knowledge transfer seemed inefficient at first, but as she listened, she began to appreciate the social and developmental benefits of such a system. Their discussion meandered through various topics: Earth's diverse ecosystems, human social structures, and the basics of human technology. Zixara absorbed it all with rapt attention, her scientist's mind cataloging every detail. However, as the conversation progressed, Zixara found herself increasingly puzzled by certain aspects of human biology and social interaction. She noticed the human skin changing color in response to various stimuli. Mr. Jensen's face reddened when discussing certain topics, while Sarah's cheeks flushed pink when excited. "I'm curious," Zixara interjected during a lull in the conversation. "I've noticed your epidermal layers seem to change pigmentation in response to emotional states. Is this a form of communication among your species?" Mr. Jensen chuckled nervously. "Ah, you mean blushing. It's not exactly communication, more of an involuntary response to certain emotions or situations." Sarah giggled. "Yeah, like when you're embarrassed or when you like someone." Zixara's head tilted in curiosity. "Like someone? Is this related to your species' reproductive processes?" The classroom suddenly fell silent. Mr. Jensen's face turned a deeper shade of red, while Sarah's eyes widened, a mix of embarrassment and amusement playing across her features. Mr. Jensen stammered, "That's a rather complex topic." Zixara's patterns pulsed with confusion. "I don't understand. Is reproduction a taboo subject among your kind?" "On Lux Prime, we view it as a natural and essential process worthy of open discussion." Sarah burst into laughter, unable to contain herself any longer. "Oh my God, this is amazing. An alien wants to know about the birds and the bees. Mr. Jensen shot Sarah a stern look before turning back to Zixara. It's not exactly taboo, but it is considered a private matter in many contexts, especially in a school setting. Zixara's confusion deepened. Private. But surely the propagation of your species is of utmost importance. How do you ensure genetic diversity and population stability without open discourse on the subject? Mr. Jensen sighed, realizing he couldn't avoid the topic. Well, we do have education on reproductive biology, but it's typically part of a specific curriculum. It's not something we discuss casually, especially with, extraterrestrial visitors. Zixara's patterns shifted to a hue indicating deep thought. Fascinating. On Lux Prime, reproduction is a communal affair. When it's time to propagate, we gather in large groups to share genetic material through a process of bioluminescent resonance. Sarah's laughter subsided, replaced by genuine curiosity. Wait, so you don't have, couples or anything? How does that work? Before Zixara could respond, Mr. Jensen intervened. Perhaps we should steer the conversation back to less sensitive topics. Zixara, you mentioned your ship crashed. Do you have a way to contact your people? Zixara's patterns dimmed slightly. Unfortunately, my communication systems were damaged in the crash. I fear I may be stranded here for some time. Mr. Jensen's expression turned serious. That could be a problem. If word gets out about your presence here, it could cause panic. Not everyone would be as accepting as we are. Sarah nodded vigorously. Yeah, there are a lot of crazy conspiracy theories about aliens. Some people might freak out or try to hurt you. Zixara's patterns pulsed with concern. I had not considered that. On Lux Prime, the arrival of a new species would be cause for celebration and scientific inquiry. Are humans truly so fearful of the unknown? Mr. Jensen sighed. Not all humans, but enough to make your situation precarious. We need to figure out a way to keep you safe while we work on repairing your ship or finding a way to contact your people. As the gravity of her situation sank in, Zixara felt a mix of emotions she had never experienced before: fear, excitement, and a strange sense of kinship with these humans who were willing to help her despite the risks. I am grateful for your assistance, she said, her patterns glowing with sincerity. I promise to do everything in my power to learn and adapt to your ways while I'm here. Perhaps together we can bridge the gap between our species and pave the way for a greater understanding. Sarah grinned. This is going to be the coolest science project ever. Mr. Jensen couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. Indeed. But remember, this has to remain absolutely secret. The fate of interspecies relations may very well rest in our hands. As the three unlikely allies began to formulate a plan, Zixara felt a surge of optimism. Despite the challenges ahead, she knew that this unexpected detour in her mission could lead to discoveries beyond her wildest dreams. And perhaps in the process, she might just help humanity take its first steps into a larger universe. Little did they know that their budding alliance would soon be put to the test, as forces beyond their control set in motion events that would challenge not only their friendship, but the very future of both their species. Unlikely alliance. As the days turned into weeks, Zixara found herself adapting to life on Earth with a mixture of fascination and frustration. Mr. Jensen had managed to secure her a temporary hiding place in an abandoned storage room at the school, cleverly disguised as a long-term science experiment, to ward off any curious janitors or administrators. Sarah had taken it upon herself to become Zixara's guide to human culture, sneaking in after school hours with an eclectic assortment of books, movies, and snacks. The aliens' reactions to Earth cuisine were a constant source of amusement. Her absolute disgust at the taste of chocolate was particularly memorable. I still don't understand how you can consume that brown sludge, Zixara remarked one afternoon, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to a nauseated green as Sarah munched on a candy bar. Sarah grinned, licking chocolate from her fingers. More for me then. But seriously, how can you not like chocolate? It's practically a universal constant. Mr. Jensen, who had been tinkering with some salvaged parts from Zixara's ship, looked up with a wry smile. I think we've firmly established that universal constants aren't as universal as we once thought. As they worked to repair Zixara's communication systems, their conversations often veered into complex discussions about the differences between their species and cultures. Zixara's insatiable curiosity about human reproduction remained a source of both enlightenment and embarrassment. "So, let me see if I understand correctly," Zixara said, her patterns pulsing with concentration. "Humans engage in a complex ritual of courtship, often lasting years, before choosing a single partner for reproduction." Mr. Jensen nodded, his face slightly flushed. "That's a simplification, but essentially correct. And this process involves the exchange of chemical signals, visual cues, and elaborate verbal and non-verbal communication." Zixara continued, her head tilted in fascination. Sarah couldn't contain her laughter. "When you put it like that, it sounds ridiculous." Zixara's patterns shifted to a confused swirl. "It does seem inefficient compared to our method of bioluminescent resonance. How do you ensure genetic diversity?" Mr. Jensen coughed awkwardly. "Perhaps we should focus on the communication array. I think I've almost got it working." As they turned their attention back to the task at hand, none of them noticed the small drone hovering outside the window, its camera lens zooming in on the unlikely trio. Miles away, in a hidden underground facility, a group of stern-faced individuals watched the live feed with intense interest. "Confirmation, sir," a technician announced. "The alien's presence has been verified." A tall, imposing man with graying hair and a military bearing nodded grimly. "Initiate Operation Stardust. We move at dawn." Back in the storage room, a sudden crackle of static from the jury-rigged communication array startled the group. "It's working," Mr. Jensen exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. Zixara rushed to the device, her patterns flashing with anticipation. She began transmitting a series of complex bioluminescent signals, which the machine converted into electromagnetic waves. For several tense minutes, they waited. Then, with a burst of static, a response came through. Zixara's patterns flared with joy. "It's a message from the Luminary Collective. They've received my distress signal and are sending a rescue ship." Sarah's face fell. "You're leaving? But we've barely scratched the surface of cultural exchange." Mr. Jensen placed a comforting hand on Sarah's shoulder. "This is good news, Sarah. Zixara can go home, and we can begin official diplomatic relations between our species." Zixara turned to her human friends, her patterns softening to a warm, affectionate glow. "I cannot express how grateful I am for your help and friendship. You've shown me the true potential of humanity, your curiosity, your kindness, your resilience. I promise to share all I've learned with my people." As they began to discuss plans for Zixara's departure and the momentous first contact that would follow, a commotion outside caught their attention. The sound of screeching tires and slamming doors filled the air. Mr. Jensen rushed to the window, his face paling at what he saw. "We've got company, and they don't look friendly." Zixara's patterns flashed with alarm. "The ones you warned me about, the humans who fear the unknown." Sarah peeked out, her eyes widening in terror. "Worse. I think it's the government. They must have found out about you somehow." As the sound of heavy boots echoed through the hallways, the trio realized their time had run out. The alliance they had forged was about to face its greatest test, and the fate of interspecies relations hung in the balance. Mr. Jensen's mind raced, years of science fiction scenarios flashing through his head. "Quick, we need to get Zixara out of here. Sarah, is there another way out of this room?" Sarah nodded, pointing to a maintenance hatch in the ceiling. "That leads to the roof. We could try to escape from there." As they helped Zixara towards the hatch, the alien turned to her human friends, her patterns pulsing with a mix of fear and determination. "I cannot ask you to risk yourselves for me. Perhaps if I surrender, I can explain our peaceful intentions." Mr. Jensen shook his head firmly. "No way. We've seen enough movies to know how that usually turns out. We're in this together now." Sarah grinned, despite the gravity of the situation. "Yeah, what he said. Earth's first alien visitor is not ending up in some Area 51 knockoff on our watch." As they climbed through the hatch and emerged onto the moonlit roof, the enormity of their situation hit them. They were no longer just a curious alien and two human scientists engaged in cultural exchange. They had become fugitives, rebels against their own government, all in the name of protecting a visitor from the stars. Zixara's bioluminescent patterns swirled with a complex mix of emotions: gratitude, fear, and a growing sense of awe at the lengths these humans were willing to go to protect her. It was a display of loyalty and bravery that challenged everything she thought she knew about this young species. As they huddled on the roof, planning their next move, none of them could have predicted the series of events that would unfold. Events that would not only test their unlikely alliance, but also shape the future of both their worlds in ways they could never have imagined. The sound of helicopters in the distance spurred them into action. Their adventure was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. With the fate of two worlds resting on their shoulders, the human-alien trio prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united in their determination to forge a path towards understanding and cooperation between their species. Threat from the stars. The cool night air whipped around Zixara, Mr. Jensen, and Sarah as they huddled on the school roof, the sound of approaching helicopters growing louder by the second. The alien's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with anxiety, casting an eerie glow over her human companions' determined faces. "We need a plan," Mr. Jensen whispered urgently, his eyes scanning the surrounding area for potential escape routes. Sarah's face suddenly lit up with an idea. "The science fair projects. Remember that kid who built a working drone last year? It's still in the lab storage." Mr. Jensen nodded, catching on quickly. "Brilliant, Sarah. If we can get to it, we might be able to create a diversion." As they carefully made their way back into the building through a maintenance access, Zixara marveled at the humans' quick thinking and adaptability. These were traits her people valued highly, and she found herself gaining a new level of respect for her Earth friends. They managed to retrieve the drone just as the sound of boots echoing through the hallways signaled the arrival of their pursuers. With trembling hands, Sarah piloted the small device out a window, using its attached camera to survey the situation outside. "There's a whole team of them," she reported, her voice barely above a whisper. "They've got the place surrounded." Mr. Jensen's brow furrowed in concentration. "Okay, here's the plan. We'll use the drone to distract them, then make a break for my car. It's not much, but it's our best shot at getting out of here." As they put their plan into action, chaos erupted outside. The small drone, piloted skillfully by Sarah, zipped and weaved between the government agents, its erratic movements and flashing lights creating confusion and drawing attention away from the school building. In the ensuing commotion, the unlikely trio managed to slip out a back entrance and sprint towards the parking lot. They piled into Mr. Jensen's beat-up sedan, their hearts pounding as he fumbled with the keys. Come on, he muttered, finally getting the engine to sputter to life. As they peeled out of the parking lot, tires screeching, Zixara's communicator suddenly crackled to life. A series of urgent beeps and pulses filled the car, causing the alien's patterns to flash with alarm. "What is it?" Sarah asked, twisting in her seat to look at Zixara. The alien's voice was tight with concern as she translated the message. "It's a warning from the Luminary Collective. They've detected a large fleet of ships entering this solar system, ships that don't belong to our people." Mr. Jensen's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "Another alien species. Are they friendly?" Zixara's patterns dimmed ominously. "I'm afraid not. The message describes them as the Vorthax, a nomadic race known for conquering and colonizing habitable worlds. They must have intercepted my distress signal and followed it here. The gravity of the situation sank in. What had started as a simple cultural exchange had now escalated into a potential invasion of Earth. The government's pursuit of Zixara suddenly seemed trivial in comparison to the looming threat from the stars. "We need to warn someone," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "The government, the military, someone who can prepare Earth's defenses." Mr. Jensen nodded grimly. "You're right, but who would believe us? With currently fugitives harboring an alien." As they sped down the empty highway, headlights cutting through the darkness, Zixara's mind raced. Her people were sending a rescue ship, but it wouldn't arrive in time to help defend Earth against the Vorthax fleet. The fate of this beautiful, complex world she had come to admire now hung in the balance. "I may have a solution," Zixara said, her patterns pulsing with determination. "My ship's long-range scanner is still functional. If we can reach it and boost its power, we might be able to provide your military with detailed information about the incoming fleet. It could give Earth a fighting chance." Mr. Jensen nodded, a spark of hope igniting in his eyes. "That could work. But we'll need help. Someone with the authority to make the military listen to us." Sarah's eyes widened as an idea struck her. "I know who we can call. My aunt, she works for NASA. She's always believed in the possibility of extraterrestrial life. If anyone would listen to us, it's her." As Sarah made the call, explaining the situation in hushed, urgent tones, Mr. Jensen steered them towards the forest where Zixara's ship had crashed. The alien gazed out the window at the passing landscape, her heart heavy with the knowledge that this peaceful world stood on the brink of an interstellar war. Hours later, as the first light of dawn began to paint the sky, they arrived at the crash site. Zixara's ship lay half buried in the underbrush, its once sleek hull now covered in a layer of Earth vegetation. As they worked to uncover the ship's scanner and boost its power, the sound of approaching vehicles made them freeze. For a moment, they feared the government had caught up with them. But as a collection of official-looking SUVs and a military helicopter came into view, they saw a familiar face step out, Sarah's aunt, accompanied by a team of scientists and military personnel. "Sarah," her aunt called out, rushing forward to embrace her niece. "I can't believe it. When you called, I thought you must be pulling some elaborate prank. But it's all true, isn't it?" As introductions were made and the situation explained, the military personnel sprung into action, securing the area and beginning to analyze the data from Zixara's scanner. The alien stood tall, her bioluminescent patterns glowing with a mix of hope and trepidation as she faced the assembled humans. "I come to you as a friend," she began, her translator conveying the sincerity in her voice. "My presence here was unintentional, but now I find myself in a position to help defend your world against a grave threat. I offer you all the knowledge and technology at my disposal to aid in Earth's defense." The lead military officer, a stern-faced woman with the rank of general, stepped forward. "On behalf of the United States government, and indeed, the people of Earth, we accept your help. It seems we face a common enemy." As the group began to formulate a plan of defense, integrating Zixara's advanced knowledge with Earth's military capabilities, Mr. Jensen and Sarah exchanged a look of amazement. Their simple act of kindness in helping a stranded alien had set in motion events that would shape the future of their entire planet. The coming days would test the limits of human ingenuity and determination. But as Zixara watched her human allies spring into action, coordinating a global response to the impending invasion, she felt a surge of hope. If any species could face this threat and emerge victorious, it was these remarkable, resilient humans. As the sun rose fully over the horizon, casting a golden glow over the assembled group, Earth prepared to face its greatest challenge yet. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin, and at its heart stood an unlikely alliance: two human teachers, a courageous student, and a luminescent alien explorer, united in their determination to save a world that suddenly seemed so small and precious in the face of the vast, dangerous universe. Humanity's stand. The following days were a whirlwind of activity as Earth prepared for its first interstellar war. Zixara found herself at the center of a global effort, working tirelessly alongside human scientists and military strategists to adapt her advanced technology to Earth's defense systems. Mr. Jensen and Sarah, once ordinary civilians, now found themselves as key liaisons between Zixara and the human forces. Their unique understanding of both human nature and Zixara's alien perspective proved invaluable in bridging the gap between the two species. As the Vorfax fleet drew nearer, tensions on Earth reached a fever pitch. Governments worldwide had made the decision to inform the public about the impending invasion, leading to a mix of panic and unity unlike anything seen before in human history. "It's remarkable," Zixara commented one evening, her patterns glowing with admiration as she watched news footage of people around the world coming together in the face of this threat. "In the span of a few days, your species has set aside centuries of conflict to stand united." Sarah nodded, a hint of pride in her voice. "That's humanity for you. We may squabble amongst ourselves, but threaten all of us, and we band together pretty quick." Mr. Jensen, who had been poring over schematics for a hybrid human luminary defense system, looked up with a weary smile. "Let's just hope it's enough." As the day of the Vorfax arrival loomed, Earth's defenses were as ready as they could be. Zixara's technology had been integrated into a network of satellites and ground-based weapons, creating a planetary shield that they hoped would withstand the initial assault. The night before the expected contact, Zixara stood on the roof of the military base that had become their headquarters, her bioluminescent patterns reflecting the starry sky above. Mr. Jensen and Sarah joined her, the three friends united in contemplative silence. "Whatever happens tomorrow," Zixara said softly, "I want you to know that meeting you, learning about your world, it has changed me in ways I never imagined possible. Your species' capacity for adaptation, for hope in the face of overwhelming odds, is truly remarkable." Sarah reached out and took one of Zixara's tentacle-like appendages in her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "We couldn't have done any of this without you, Zix. You're practically human now, you know." Mr. Jensen chuckled. "A glowing, full-hearted human with superior technology, but yes, I'd say you've earned honorary Earth citizenship." As dawn broke on the day of the invasion, the world held its breath. The Vorfax fleet appeared in the sky, a terrifying armada of sleek, predatory ships that blotted out the sun. But humanity was ready. As the first wave of Vorfax attackers descended, they were met with a unified defense that combined the best of human ingenuity with Zixara's advanced luminary technology. The battle raged for hours, the sky alight with explosions and energy beams. On the ground, Zixara worked frantically alongside human operators, making real-time adjustments to the defense grid as they adapted to the Vorfax tactics. Just when it seemed the defenses might buckle under the relentless assault, a new signal appeared on their scanners. Zixara's patterns flashed with joy as she recognized the signature of luminary ships. "They're here," she exclaimed. "My people have arrived." The tide of battle quickly turned. Caught between the surprisingly robust Earth defenses and the technologically superior luminary fleet, the Vorfax found themselves outmatched. Within hours, the invading force was in full retreat, leaving behind a battered but unbroken Earth. As the dust settled and the true scope of humanity's victory became clear, celebrations erupted around the globe. In the command center, Zixara, Mr. Jensen, and Sarah embraced, that unlikely friendship having blossomed into a bond that had quite literally saved the world. In the days that followed, as Earth began the process of recovery and the luminary established formal diplomatic relations with humanity, Zixara found herself at a crossroads. "My people have asked me to serve as an ambassador to Earth," she told Mr. Jensen and Sarah, her patterns swerving with a mix of excitement and hesitation. "But I find myself reluctant to leave." Mr. Jensen smiled knowingly. "You've made a home here, haven't you?" Sarah grinned. "Plus, We've still got so much to teach you about human culture. You haven't even tried pizza yet. Zixara's patterns brightened with amusement and affection. Perhaps I could serve as an ambassador here on Earth, facilitating the exchange of knowledge and culture between our species. After all, there is still so much for us to learn from each other. As they stood together, looking out over a world forever changed by their adventure, the future seemed bright with possibility. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, guided by an unlikely alliance born of curiosity, compassion, and the universal desire for understanding. Mr. Jensen chuckled softly. You know, when I became a teacher, I never imagined I'd end up helping save the world from alien invaders. Sarah nudged him playfully. Just imagine what next year's science fair is going to be like. Zixara's patterns pulsed with warm laughter, a sound that perfectly harmonized with her human friend's mirth. As the sun set on this new era of human history, the trio knew that their greatest adventures and discoveries were still to come. In the end, it wasn't advanced technology or military might that had saved Earth. It was the very qualities that had first drawn Zixara to humanity: their adaptability, their resilience, and above all, their capacity for friendship that transcended the boundaries of species and worlds. As night fell and the stars twinkled overhead, no longer distant and unreachable, but full of promise and new friends, Zixara, Mr. Jensen, and Sarah looked to the future with hope and excitement. The universe, they knew, would never be the same, and neither would they.